Okay, Mr. Bahork here, and this is Chapter 6, Lesson 6, Proportions and Percents. We're going to look at how proportions and percents relate to one another. So, a reminder, a proportion is just two equal ratios, and a percent is a ratio with a denominator of 100. Well, if a percent is a ratio, and a proportion is just two equal ratios, well, then it makes sense that we could use a percent with a proportion. So let's take an example here. Let's say, okay, we've got 37%. Well, if I write this as a ratio, well, that's 37 over 100. Percent means per 100. 37 is the part, where 100 is the whole. Well, since this is comparing a part to a whole, well, then it makes sense that we could compare it to other numbers that are a part to a whole, or have that kind of relationship. Because that's what proportions are. We compare two of the same things. So let's do an example. Let's say you've got this hole in the ground, like so. Here's my hole, and you know that this hole can hold 245 gallons. You know at the very top it holds 245 gallons. So that must mean that if it's empty, that'd be 0 gallons, right? Down there. And so one day you come along and you're like, oh, sweet. I totally got all of this Kool-Aid, and I love Kool-Aid. So you pour it in the hole and you're going to store it for later. And it goes to about right there. There's your well full of Kool-Aid. So let's color that in. Awesome. Now, when you're looking down in there, you can tell by the magic of mathematics that it's about 65% full. Which means that if it was filled all the way up to the top, that'd be 100%. And if it was down at the bottom, of course, that'd be 0%. So what we want to know is, well, how many gallons do you have in that hole? What's that? Well, we can set up a proportion, right? So, since the percent, the part that we have here is 65 out of 100%, or 65%. That's 65 over 100. And I guess I'll do that last part in blue. So, on the other side of our proportion, let's see what we have. Okay, well, 65 is the part, and 100 is the whole. Well, we know the whole amount. It's 245. So, let's fill that in. What we don't know is this amount right here. Okay, so we would do our cross products and solve, and for the purposes of making a fairly short video, I'll just go ahead and tell you that it's going to be 159.25 gallons. So you filled it up with 159.25 gallons of Kool-Aid. So 159.25 gallons that's 65% of that total amount of gallons, 245 gallons. Is one way you can say it. Now for all percent problems, for all these like little percent problems we're going to do with proportions and percent, there's a very basic setup for all of these. And here it is. Well, first let me change my brush size there. Okay. All right, basic setup. So the basic setup is n over 100. Okay, whatever the percent is over that 100 per 100 is always equal to the part. That's what we call it. Sometimes it's referred to as is, and you'll see why in a moment. The part over the whole. And sometimes this is referred to as of, which is related to word problems that we'll do in a second. Okay. Obviously, on this side of the proportion, this is the percent, and these are going to be the other numbers that we compare. So let's do an example real fast that illustrates this. So example 1. I want to know, well, what percent, sorry about the sloppy writing, what percent of 34 is 28? So look at what we have and what we don't have. We do not know the percent. It says what percent? I don't know. Well, let's look at the basic setup over here. So if we don't know what the percent is, then we don't know n. We know that it's going to be a percent, so it's going to be over 100 no matter what. We just don't know what the top number is. Okay, so some things to look out for here is, okay, it says of 34 is 28. What percent of 34 is 28? So 28 is the part, and of is 34. And there's a little trick where I was mentioning the is over of here. Okay, if you underline the word of, the next number is normally the of. If you underline is, the next number is the is part. So is over of, 28 over 34. And of course we would do our cross products and all that good stuff, and I'll go ahead and do that in green. So 100 times 28 would be 2800, and n times 34 would be 34n. Messed that up pretty bad. 34n. We would divide both sides by 34. My pen is acting a little bit crazy today. Alright, and our final answer would be n is equal to 82.4%. So n right here is 82.4%. So 82.4% of 34 is 28. Let's do another example. These are fun. So let's say 207 is 46% of what number? Okay, 207 is 46% of what number? Well, if looking at the basic setup up here, okay, n over 100 equals part over whole, or is over of. We know the percent this time. Okay, it's right here, 46%. So 46 over 100 equals. Now, what we don't know is the of, the whole. Okay, we know the part of it, but we don't know what the whole number is. So of what? So we don't know. Let's say it's x. Okay, and we do know the is. It's 207. When you solve this out, you'll end up getting x equals 450. If you don't believe me, do 207 times 100 to get 20700 equals 46x. Divide both sides by 46, and voila, I promise, it's 450. Alright, to do one last example, okay, let's say, and I'll do this over here in the corner real quick. Let's draw a little dividing line. Let's say there's like a big comic book convention in town, and in the gallery room or wherever it is, there's 90 Star Trek fans. Ooh, 90 Star Trek fans. Alright, so you're looking around and you realize that, by the magic of math, that's only 15% of the people in the room. That's only 15% of all the fanboys. So what I want to know is how many fanboys are there total? Well, proportion. If there's 15%, well then we could say 15 out of 100. What I don't know is the total. I know there's 90 Star Trek fans, but that's only part of the room. That's only 15% of the whole room, so that's 90 of them. And I don't know how many total there are. When you solve this out, you're going to be doing the cross products and all that good stuff. And for some reason my pen is not working. Hold on one moment. I do not know why it's not. There we go. Okay. Alright, so when you solve this out, you'll be doing the cross product. So 90 times 100. And that is going to be 9, 0, and then add the 2 zeros. 9,000. And then, of course, 15 times x. So you've got to give 15 times x right here. We're going to go ahead and divide both sides by 15. There we go. All right, and 9,000 divided by 15 is going to be 600. So there's 600 fanboys at the comic book convention. All right, I'm Mr. Pork, and this was how proportions relate to percents.